Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this third week of this professional development series of presentations from Olmara Education. So today we have two more speakers and two important topics to develop. All right, let me introduce the first speaker. Well, he's a very good friend of mine. I had a chance of working with him, and he's a very top-notch professional. So Mr. Augusto Lescano Guevara. Mr. Lescano holds a degree in secondary education and a master's in school management from Tecnológico de Monterrey, Mexico. He has worked extensively in teaching English and other subjects around the country and abroad for over 30 years. Additionally, he has participated actively in teacher training events as a guest speaker in Peru and Chile, and has taken leadership positions at different schools in the region. IB and Cambridge official examiner. He is currently the headmaster at Colegio San Jerónimo, from Arequipa. Today, he's delivering the workshop, Meeting International Standards in Class. What a challenge is to take learners all the way to reach international certification in English. It is quite possible, though. No shortcuts or tricks, just the right theoretical and pedagogical mindset and the right set of successful strategies. The workshop will start from the foundations of meaningful communicative skills and then engage participants into productive activities to really make a difference in the language. All right, let's welcome Mr. Augusto Lescano with a big round of applause. Welcome, Augusto.
Thank you very much, Jesus. Thank you, everyone. It's an honor to be here. I see some very familiar names. Very happy to see them with me. Yes, well, this is a very challenging topic, and I understand that there is a link for questions in case participants would like to join in and ask questions throughout the presentation. We will save the questions, and I will do my best to address your questions at the end. Let me start by sharing the screen. Here we go. Yes. Meeting is international standards. Can you all see me? Can you all see the screen? Jesus, is that all right?
Yes, it is, Augusto.
Fine, perfect. We're ready then. And I usually demand the participants to join in. So I do not mind that if you want to chat with me in case whenever there is a need or whenever there is a possibility throughout the presentation. So here we go. What are the learning objectives today? What do I expect? What does Olmara expect from participants this afternoon from this first session? You can read. I think it is very important. If you want to meet international standards, you do need to understand the basic foundations of communicative language learning. There is no way you can meet those standards. You can take your students or your own level of English to international certification if you don't understand these basic foundations. So we're going to try to understand them, discuss a variety of strategies together, of course, and finally design a meaningful activity. I'm not sure we would be able to cover this third objective actively or fully, but at least we would share some ideas so you can identify whether the activities you're currently delivering or whether the activities you plan to develop are meaningful and are communicative. So here we go into the expected outcomes. What do we expect from you after identifying these objectives? Use properly at least 2 terms from the theoretical foundations. Do not panic. This is not meant to be a lecture on theory of communicative approach. No, it is not. But there are terms that we will be using actively, and I'm sure you will understand what I mean, and you will be able to pick up. And then those of you who are interested in obtaining the full training plan, from Olmara, there's an activity afterwards that you should be able to complete, and that will give you a well-rounded picture of what these theoretical foundations are. And second, identify at least 2 meaningful strategies or activities that develop successful communication. There's a third, well, okay, I have this, let me take this up. Okay, oh, sorry, I did something, okay, my mistake, sorry. All right, can you see this, the comic strip? Can you all see the comic strip? Just look at it, look at each part of the strip silently. Okay, I have a question for you. Something is wrong here, just a minute. If you look at the screen, if you look at the strip, what comes to your mind? What comes to your mind? Probably the fact that, just a second. By using the language, yes, using the language, all right. Anybody else? When the students are using the language, you realize that students are really learning. Very good. Is there any other way you know that students are actually learning? In this case, if you look at this, if you look at the comic strip, you identify that participants were not actually, the characters were expecting, one of the characters was expecting the dog to whistle. And the other one was aware that it doesn't matter what you teach. What matters is whether you learn or not. So my question is basically to help you realize and reflect on all the things you do against the things students are meant to do in order to reach the same target, which is for you to teach and for them to learn. Sometimes there's a gap between what you do and what students do. And let alone today, when students are not necessarily focusing on what you're doing, or are not necessarily on task, are not necessarily looking at you. Okay, when they can communicate, very good. When the students start speaking and using grammar actively, properly, okay, when they ask you questions, communication is very important. Excellent, excellent. Your answers suit perfectly well with what we're covering. So here we go. We're going to go into the next part. There's another question for you. How do we develop and measure our students' communicative competence? How do we measure that? How do we tell whether our students are really reaching the communicative competence? When they produce, very good. But what are the standards? What standards do you follow? We have plenty of sources for standards. We have the Common European Framework of Reference, we have Cambridge, we have Michigan, we have a number of organizations, institutions that do that. So here we go. Again, for example, many of you might wonder, and I think you've mentioned it, some of you have mentioned it, that by using vocabulary, rules, structures, by pronunciating words perfectly, but by spelling words perfectly, we can tell that students are reaching a communicative level, a communicative target. That's one of the ways. I wonder how many of you consider this letter A, this item A, as a main point, or perhaps with sociocultural rules in context. Do you understand what I mean by sociocultural rules? For example, by using certain terms. I like the way teenagers today, or even older children, I mean, primary students, start using certain terms certain English terms in context. And it's not that they know the rule, whether they do or do not know the rule, sometimes they use expressions in context. Like, for example, the simple expression, wow, W-O-W. But when a student, a student, that is a foreign language student, is able to use that expression in context, you wonder, wow, okay, yes, he understands when to use that word. Or I remember one case when I had a student, and I questioned an idea that he was presenting, and then I questioned it by stating another point, and the student said, "Sure." He said that he responded with a question, "Sure," and that's completely sociocultural. There is no grammatical rule that would tell you when to use the word as a question. And that was an example of the way this student was able to use a sociocultural expression in context. Another way is the way the students use the strategies, not only verbal strategies. Sometimes non-verbal strategies are meaningful. Aha, aha. No, 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 no. The typical expression, okay, an expression like that, a no-no, is very English, very Anglo, and a lot of not all of the students know that, and a lot of the times we don't teach that. Sometimes they come in texts, they come in listening exercises, and you wonder whether you need to teach them or whether the students pick it up, or you need to explain them. But anyway, this may be another way to see whether students are developing the competence. Another one, I'm going to move this screen out of the way. With coherence and cohesion when speaking or writing. Coherence, does anybody understand the difference between coherence and cohesion when speaking or writing? These two abilities are mostly used in those two skills, speaking and writing. Coherence is the relationship, the close relationship between one idea and the next, and the next, and the next. When you speak or when you write, you should focus, your topic should stick to a main one, and that is measured by coherence. Cohesion is the way paragraphs connect with each other, and the student is able to make connections between paragraphs using words accordingly. And a lot of the times, some teachers or a number of teachers are worried about students' speaking and writing ability, so they make sure that the students express their ideas in certain order and in a certain way so that their ideas are more relevant and they make sense, which is the point in letter D. And I stop here for a second and I ask you, which of these items is more important for you when you want to teach communication with your students in English? Think about it for a second. Is it with rules, vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, spelling, or is it culture? Do you really focus on culture? Or is it the strategies, using the right words in the right place, using the right ideas in the right context, the right questions, the right answers, or making sure your ideas make sense? Or is it perhaps a combination? Okay, Patricia says it's letter C. Thank you, thank you. A lot of approaches to communicative teachings focus on C. They say that C is certainly the most important. Okay, Marlon believes it's letter A, it's grammar. Okay, I remember there was a theory a long time ago, you perhaps were not even born. There was a story about Grammarella in the teaching of English language. Grammarella, because Grammarella was the first lady of teaching English at the beginning I'm telling you what the history of learning languages state is that grammar was the very first one. So she was the queen, she was the first lady. Grammar was the first lady in learning languages. And then she was neglected, she was hidden, she was kept apart. And so she became Grammarella. And then over time, we've come to realize that grammar is important, vocabulary rules are important. Very good. Maria also believes is letter A. So here I point another one. Sorry. All of the above? It's all of the above. It's all of the above. The 4 different competencies, not skills. Competencies are important. All of them are important at the same level. 4 main competencies. The 4 items that I just shared with you, these are the 4 main competencies in the history of communicative approach. In the past 70 years, specialists have talked about these 4 elements in many different ways. And if you were able to understand this so far, you're fine with the theoretical foundations. This is the main idea of the first part. Vocabulary rules for sentence structure, pronunciation, and spelling, it's called linguistic competence. That is linguistic competence. So those of you who believe that rules and vocabulary and spelling are important, is you focus mostly on linguistic competence, which is not bad, which is not wrong, but perhaps it's limited. Because by focusing on that, you're focusing only on elements of the language and not necessarily communication. Sociocultural rules in context. This is called social linguistic competence or sociocultural competence. A very important element. I would probably say that is one of the most, one of the newest ideas being introduced, one of the newest competencies introduced in the foundations of communication in English. Verbal and non-verbal strategies. This has a variety of names, but it's normally called strategic competence. Strategic competence. We'll talk about this in a minute. And finally, coherence and cohesion when speaking. I bet many of you did not consider this very important, but specialists believe that discourse competence is very important. And a lot of the times, especially recently, has not been considered, has not been given enough attention. Discourse, if you talk about speaking and writing need listening and reading. So discourse competence has to cover all of it. There's no way as a student can develop discourse competence only by speaking and writing. He needs to have a backup level of listening ability and reading ability. Okay, I hope this is clear. We got linguistic competence, social linguistic competence, strategic competence, and discourse competence. Okay. Now, here we have the 4 competencies. Can you identify which one is which? For example, the picture of the top left. Which one is that? Which one would you say that is the photograph, the picture on the top left? Anyone think? Which of the 4 competencies that I described is this one? Anyone? Guess? Would it be perhaps the first one maybe? Patricia? Yes, very good. It's called, anyone? If you can remember? It's excellent, Andrea. It's linguistic competence. That's linguistic competence, the ability to use grammar, vocabulary, spelling, and pronunciation. Excellent. And what about the one at the bottom left? Anyone? Kind of difficult. I tried to look for a picture that symbolizes the right idea. It was a hard one. It has to do with, if you look at the picture, we have 4 people speaking in bubbles, but then the bubbles get connected. One letter, number 1, linguistic. But in this case, you see that there is an engagement, that what one of the characters say social linguistic competence, Edward. Okay. It's actually more towards strategic competence, because it's the way you use verbal and nonverbal communication to connect with others and to reach your objective. Okay, and what about at the top right? Perhaps, Edward, you will be more, you will be closer to the answer there. Social linguistic competence is top right. Yes, because you see that as the social, cultural, social linguistic focuses more on in the interaction, on purpose, meaningful negotiation. And finally, the last one, the one at the bottom, is discourse. How you put everything together. You put verbal, nonverbal, grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation. You put together culture, and you develop general discourse. Now here we go into. I'm going to mention these four competencies again, mainly so you can understand what other terms are used to describe this competence. Linguistic is also called organizational or grammatical competence. Okay, and I must say that it is not wrong to focus your teaching activities on linguistic, but I wonder if 90% of your time is focused on this competence, and whether it's convenient that you only develop this one as a main one. Stephen Krashen states that we all have a language monitor in our heads. A learner has a language monitor in their heads, in its head, and this monitor activates when he has to use the language. But when you focus too much on grammar rules, the monitor does not activate, because you stop to think whether the way you should say things, and it limits one's ability to produce. That's what Stephen Krashen stated some time ago. Then we have another one. The social linguistic competence is also called sociocultural and intercultural or pragmatic competence. A variety of literature, specialists on different approaches call this competence like that. So in case you want to read more, or maybe go deeper into each one, there you have names that would take you to where you want to study further. Strategic, which is called negotiating or learning competence, because the strategic, and that is why it used to be, especially in the past 15 years, it used to be focused highly, because they believe that autonomous learning depends on strategy. The way you learn rather than what you learn is important. The way you negotiate meaning with others, with other participants. And finally, discourse, which covers, is called actional because it moves the learner, and it's also called receptive productive because of the four skills competence. All right. Now, this is theory, everyone. This is only theory so far, but it's important to understand the theory before we move into something more practical. And I hope it has been clear. Here we have a recording that I would like to play for you, and it's taken from Fluent U. I found the source. I don't know if you're familiar with Fluent U. It's a program for learning English online. It's a very interesting program. I liked the video because it covers some of the competencies. And I would like you, while you listen, take your notes and see if you identify the four different competencies, or which competencies do you clearly notice in the main character in this video. I hope you remember the four of them. I will briefly mention: linguistic, sociocultural competence, strategic competence, and discourse competence. Okay, so I might need to, with this activity, my aim was to ask you which competencies were developed by the student, which competency is not. And I imagine that by now you may be thinking of my question, the question that I posed a couple of times. Which competency do you focus more? Which competency do you not cover? Which competency do you not cover normally in class? And that is what's the purpose of this video. Should one competency lead the others? Which one? Should all be integrated? That's another important question. Should all they be integrated? I mentioned at the beginning that all the 4 competencies were important. And I ask you, which competency do you find most difficult to implement in your class? Whether it's virtual or live with the students, which competency do you find most difficult? I will go back to show you the 4 of them. Tell me. I can see that developing the linguistic competence is practiced actively in class. What about social linguistic, strategic, and discourse? Can anybody share his or her thoughts? Which competence do you find difficult to implement? Or do you not realize that have used? Anyone? Okay, yes. Rosanna, please share your idea. Okay, Rosanna, can you speak?
I can't. Hello, dear teacher. Well, from my experience, I found listening is the hardest one.
Okay. Yes, yes. I think it is important for all of you to understand that we've normally been taught that skills are the ones we must teach: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. But by developing competencies, we're meeting international standards, and we're aiming at well-rounded communication skills, well-rounded communication competence. It's wider than focusing only on the skills. Competency in letter D, the discourse competence focuses on skills in action. And I agree with you, Rosanna, listening is probably a very difficult skill to cover within the discourse competence. My experience in my experience with visiting different teachers, I realized that it's B, the most difficult. A lot of the times, teachers don't know how to share, how to teach culture. A lot of the times, books cover culture implicitly, but not actively, not explicitly. And you need to identify that. The next activity that I have prepared for you will help you identify that. It's a sample activity taken from a, just a second, this is working when it was not supposed to work. Okay, sorry. Let me show you. Yes. Okay, here. Here we have for you a, sorry. Here we have for you an activity. Read the activity, please. All right, so here's a text. It's a reading text. Probably a number of words that is enough to say that it's a B1 level or B2, depending on the vocabulary. So it has a task, it has a description of the activity at first, but then 2 tasks that students need to do. Can you identify the tasks? The first task, it's an essay. And the second task, it's a plan. And then there is a context where this essay and plan need to be done. Okay. Now, if you want to focus the linguistic competence, look at the text. What main elements in the context may be considered an opportunity for linguistic competence development? When I looked at it first, I thought of the first lines, but then you look at the tasks and then you say must submit, must also submit. So there you have modal that is repeated. And you have a number of models, would provide. You also see that again. So there you have models, maybe an opportunity to cover here. Maybe perhaps to understand, for the students to understand the context of obligation. Okay, so there you have linguistic competence. If you talk about culture, if you talk about the social linguistic competence, what would you look at? What would you focus on within this reading text? Tuition free. Tuition free. This is not a term that is culturally common in countries like Peru, because most universities don't offer that. Don't offer, well, certain scholarships may, but most universities do not offer tuition-free semesters in another country. So tuition-free. Romance languages. Romance languages, it's also an expression that is not normally seen in Spanish. So there you have two elements that may be used as culture. And then you have a strategic. Strategic would probably be better developed within the activity. And if you talk about discourse is the way you would connect this reading to something else. So the connection would be the next task. Read the text, the second text, please. All right. So there you have another term that perhaps we did not think about, which is policy. Policy, the word policy was not mentioned in the first text, but it is mentioned by the female student regarding the two must-dos, the essay and the plan. And then you say that she expresses the text states about her disagreement with the policy. And not only why she disagrees, but the reasons why she disagrees for holding her opinion. So there you have a reading text connected to a listening text. That is what specialists, what researchers state about the value of connecting activities, connecting skills as part of the same activity. They make by integrating skills, you're helping the students develop discourse well-roundedly. They read a text and they listen to something. Okay, we're going to listen to it now, and I would like you to help me after listening to the female student, if you can say whether you can understand why she disagrees and the reasons why she disagrees. Okay, here we go. In addition to my apologies, I would do my best to fulfill these minutes left. I wanted to show you by listening to this video the female student's opinion. This listening segment focused on her disagreement because it was unfair. Unfair because the scholarship was only going to be offered to Romance language students, which were only 9. and she believed, again, different from her male friend, that it was unfair because it didn't give a chance for students in other departments to join in the competition and make the competition more challenging and ensure that it was the very best students that would get the scholarship in Rome. And she believed that it was not only unfair for the other departments, but it was it limited the challenge for all of them. Those were the two reasons why she stated. But anyway, my main point for playing this video for you, this audio for you, was basically for you to understand that how important it was that the activities you develop in your lesson in every class are connected, number one, and number two, that you ensure that there is diversity in your lessons, not only diversity in activity, but diversity in skills, diversity in competence. As you can see here, after reading the text, New Scholarship Offers Opportunity to Study in Rome, by reading, which is a skill, you may also use it as a way to develop sociocultural competence, as I said before, by focusing on what is tuition free in the United States and how can that compare to tuitions in your own country. Another element is policies, university policies for scholarships. What must students do for certain purposes? In this case, for scholarships, you must submit an essay, you must submit a detailed plan. And would this work in your own country? Would this work in your own institution? Why would it or why would it not? What elements affect one decision or the other? And then you have the response from the female student, which can also be an opportunity to develop linguistic competence by paying attention to certain chunks or phrases by the female student, by pausing and sharing that, and strategic competence by, if you look at the text presented by the female student, why she disagrees, stating her opinion, explain her reasons. How often do we develop in class formally the ability to state one's opinion? Are there moments in your lesson where a student's opinion are stated linguistically proper, linguistically correct, and strategically correct? Students need to use that. Students need to not only manage grammar, not only understand vocabulary, but also be able to use these proper functions, stating opinion, explaining reasons. How often are your students asked to give reasons on their own rather than repeating reasons read in the text or repeating the reasons stated by others? That is a matter of strategic competence. And if you look at it, if you follow the sequence, reading, understanding her point, and then stating, trying to rephrase her opinion, you're developing a number of competencies and a number of skills. The next activity I wanted you to do is this one. And this is the last part of my presentation. The greatest communication skill is paying value to others. I found this quote, and I like this quote very much because it opens doors to a number of topics and discussions. I'm trying to think with you. I would like you to think with me and plan a lesson briefly, in which you would cover the 4 competencies and at the same time the skills. For example, what linguistic competence elements are important when you're dealing with greatest communication skill is paying value to others? The greatest communication skill is paying value to others. Maybe you can say The least communication skill is what? That would be a grammar element. The greatest communication skill in my school, the least important communication skill today is, see, you rephrase this quote in different ways so as to develop linguistic competence. And how can you develop it? You can develop it through speaking, you can develop it through writing, you can develop it through a text that students use to explain their points. After that, you would say, how you think of, would this idea be different in another culture? Would this be different in Hispanic countries, different from Anglo countries? Which culture, Anglo or Hispanic, pays more value to others? Pays more respect, perhaps, pays more value to others' opinions. If you think about that, there you see that you will be using culture as a very important element to develop this second important competence. Strategic would probably be by using this same, if you want to use this same quote, would probably be by splitting the idea. The greatest communication skill is, and have the students use other ideas and support their points, an argument with each other, use arguments with each other, argue and support their points. The greatest communication skill is. The other would be, what is the value, what does it mean to pay value to others? Do you understand what it means to pay value to others? It's a cultural phrase, but at the same time, I am sure that your students would be using a variety of language structures, a variety of functions to express this second part of the quote. And you could complete the discourse level by finishing up with a task where the students would well-rounded explain their point. For example, write a paragraph about the class discussion, or present a debate about from the two most important ideas in the text. The point here is that I hope you all understand how it is, if you want to meet international standards, if you really want to, if you want to have your students meet what the Common European Framework of Reference demands in the different skills, it is important, two main things. Number one, that you understand the need to develop each competency: linguistic, sociocultural, strategic, and discourse. Number one. And number two, that you integrate them. They cannot be working, they cannot work isolatedly. Likewise, most of you, I'm sure most of you, pay very important attention to skills. I need to use the 4 skills within my lessons every week. Yes, skills are important: listening, reading, speaking, and writing. But if you don't plan your listening activity or your reading activity within the competencies, the students would not meet the standards. The students would only be covering the skills as elements of the language. I think I'm in time, right, Jesus? Hello? I think it's time for me to talk about, to address the answers to your questions. And once again, I apologize for the inconvenience. Jesus, do I still have a few minutes left?
Yes, Augusto, you have some minutes to spare.
Excellent, excellent. A lot of the times, everyone, one of the most difficult things, as it was for me, is to move from the linguistic perspective of teaching, from teaching grammar to implementing the others. I think that is one of the most difficult things. to move away from understanding the value of grammar to understanding the value of strategic ability and culture. My first advice to all of you is to start little, step by step. Again, the recent researchers state that by focusing only on grammar rules, on vocabulary lists, on structures, on spelling only in class, you are not only what some specialists called elementitis. You're using language as elements. And by covering grammar or vocabulary as elements of the language, students would not be able to put the elements together when they need to speak on their own. They would not develop the ability. It is necessary to move away from the rules or to transfer all this teaching of rules and communication to the rules of grammar rules or lists of vocabulary. If you're focusing on that, to move away from that into turning that into activities, turning it into a pre-communicative and progressively a communicative activity. For example, if we want to use the example here given of the scholarships offered, I suggested, for example, that we would look at modals. Modal must or modal would provide would. Okay, you spend a number of minutes, a number of activities, making sure the students know how to use the modal properly, know how to use this modal different from other models, or understanding that this model aims at understanding obligation, right? But if students are not moved progressively into using obligation with their own words and with more open-ended ideas, then the activity is still focused, is still limited, is still only an element of the language and not a pre-communicative activity or a communicative activity. If you want to move this, if you want to move your must exercises, your must drills into pre-communicative or communicative activity, then you would need to design a context, present a context in which students will probably have to think of musts. For example, if you want to graduate in the school where if you're a high school teacher attending this presentation and you wanted to use must as obligation, then the pre-communicative activity could probably be, well, let's talk about what are the musts if you want to graduate. What are the musts if you want to pass on to the next grade? What are the musts if you want to enter university? And then the students would use their own language and would not necessarily come up with the same idea. That's another important element in communication. Negotiation is free. Negotiation cannot be limited to a single correct answer because that is only pre-communicative. The real communicative activity would take the learners to ideas that are more free. If you meet the challenge of going away a little bit, going further from the linguistic competence onto other competencies, I think it is important also to spend time on culture for a number of reasons. Culture, sociocultural competence, not only because it connects the students with the countries where the language is spoken. It makes learning more relevant and certainly more attractive when the students see that their ideas are not only grammatically correct, but they respond to the way an American or a British student would use the same words. And that is a very important element in international certification. It is not the main element, but most of the tasks presented in international exams require the student to understand expressions, to understand phrases, non-verbal expressions sometimes that are used within an Anglo context, an Anglo context. So culture needs to play an important role, not the main role, but an important role. And a strategic competence is also quite important. When we say strategic competency is the way the student uses the language to state their idea, to support their argument, to contradict, etc., to describe, to narrate. Learning English by functions is a strategic competence. And that also plays an important role. Is this not the main role? I think if you balance functions with grammar, you are able to help the students understand the language as a whole and understand language as a means of communication. I think a lot of the time, I am sure that most of you work in schools, and one of the biggest mistakes made in the teaching of English in schools is to understand that English is a subject, and English is no longer a subject. It must have been maybe 50 years ago. But today, in teaching English in schools, it's not teaching a subject. It's an open door to the world. Is providing the student with a tool that can help the student, that will take the student to further opportunities in life. If you bear this in mind during your lessons, that you are not teaching a subject, you don't want the students to get a passing grade. You don't want the students to understand only a structure. You want the students to use the language to meet challenges, use the language to negotiate, use the language to get the message across. That is the most important point of this presentation. I would like to move on to the questions, if it's possible. Jesus?
Yes, Augusto.
I am going to stop sharing. Okay. Yes. What is the best methodology for me to start a class? That's a quite a challenging question, and I thank Rosa Franco for it. I would probably say that it really depends on the age group. TPR with young children, very young children. If you're teaching nursery, if you're teaching first grade, action is absolutely necessary as a starting point. Action as a physical action, as a task that implies the students doing something from at the very beginning, not only the teacher. Not a young child in an English class needs to be actively involved from the very beginning by doing things with you or on their own. If you're talking about older primary, upper primary or secondary, I would probably use, talking about methodology itself, I would probably focus again on communication, but I would start with a question that does not have an easy answer, a question that perhaps I don't know the answer for. I used to teach, I'll tell you an experience I had in teaching Spanish in the United States. I would bring up a question of a situation that I faced in the United States with my American students, so that they would try to explain culture to me. Sometimes it was a situation that I saw in the street or that I heard someone say, and it didn't make sense to me in my own culture. So I would start the class with this. I mean, by posing a question, Researchers call it a conflict, cognitive conflict. You bring up a cognitive conflict to upper primary or secondary students that may be connected to language. I remember, for example, I was teaching an advanced lesson in secondary, an advanced group in secondary, and I say to them, we were talking about stating ideas and reinforcing ideas, and we had covered a number of structures with it, and we came up also. We reviewed at one point tag questions, isn't it? Aren't you? Don't they? As a way to reinforce an idea. And I started the class to say, is it possible to say, aren't I? I wrote the expression in the question on the board. Is it possible to say this? And it was interesting because it's not actually a methodology. It's, well, the researchers call it a cognitive conflict. You bring up an idea that enhances curiosity and also forces the students to think on their own. And by posing this question, students had to review tag questions again. And they say, no, but you use I with this and this and this and this auxiliary. You never use I with that. You use R with this and this and this. And then we said, okay, let's review tag questions. Let's review all the ways we use to reinforce ideas and see. And only at the end, we all sat down and we all read, looked out in different sources, and then they found out that it's possible to use that. But then again, it was the original idea that would bring up an interesting lesson throughout the period of time. It's not always easy, but it's an interesting way to get students connected. One of the most difficult things today, and I bet you face that with these virtual lessons, that students are not on task. The students may have the screens on, but they may not, but they're not there. And how do you make sure they're there? So it's curiosity, it's challenge, it's something that is attractive, but trying to remember at all times that you're not a performer, that you should not be a performer. You should try to bring up a question that raises interest, curiosity, challenge, but don't plan activities that are only aimed at keeping their attention on. No, it's not enough to keep their attention on. If their attention doesn't come with an answer, then it may not be valid. Second question coming from Marlon is, do you think that we should focus more on the speaking skill instead of focusing more on grammar? It's an important question. I would probably use my experience from watching different classes from different people in the past 10 years, and I would say yes, because teachers still tend to focus extremely much on grammar, extremely more time in grammar than on developing speaking. I think it is, I was always trying to wonder why they do that. And I think it gives us more confidence and more control of the class. Because if we're teaching grammar, the answers are only one. So all your questions are normally closed-ended. The answers to the questions you present, the answers to the grammar exercises you introduce will only be one. There's only one correct answer to a grammar question. But if you bring up a speaking question, a question for a conversational question, then the answers will be varied and teachers may lose a level of control. I think that is one of the risks you take. But against the risks, it is very important that you look at the advantages. And you would see, Marlon and everyone, you would see the advantages, but that speaking would pose more than the linguistic competence. And the third question, what kinds of feedback do we have in remote teaching? Very interesting, very interesting. I think it's unfortunate to realize that it does depend on the platform you use. Some platforms allow for better forms of feedback than others. Some platforms don't. But I have seen how intelligent and creative teachers can be in order to address these feedback forms. To start, I think feedback has to take place. I don't know if you're all familiar with formative assessment. The formative assessment states that feedback needs to be done from the very beginning of the lesson, not only at the end. Feedback, for example, formative feedback states that by paying close attention to one student says, other students say, you are able to understand how much instruction was clear, how well instruction was understood. And by using the right type of feedback questions, you would be able to collect relevant, meaningful information to help you improve your lessons. But it's not only helpful for you. Formative feedback, it's also important for the students. I see that a lot of teachers in classes during this remote teaching, a lot of teachers believe that an English class is mostly teacher-student roles. The teacher asking a question to a student responding to the teacher. And they don't realize that within that modality, you don't have the chance to reflect or to provide feedback because you're the interlocutor. Then, if you bounce the question to another student, sometimes the student asks you a question and you bounce it to another student or bounce it to the same student. Mr. Lescano, so what is right to say, this or this? And you bounce back, what do you think? And the student will probably be hesitant and say something. And then you move the question to a second student. And by listening to the student, the same student provide their own answer, and then listening to a second or a third student, you and they would be able to reflect more on what is right and what is wrong, and not see the teacher as the source of correct information, number one. They develop the ability to listen to other students for information, and they develop the ability to reflect on what they say. That is the purpose of formative feedback, that the information shared in class can help everyone make improvement in time, and not only at the end. If you wait to provide feedback at the end of your remote session, then you lose the opportunity to enrich the lesson with interaction. And then formative feedback believes that it is not only by asking questions from the teacher's standpoint, but also by bringing other students' opinions in the discussion, so that even they all monitor by providing peer assessment and self-assessment. Questions like, what have I understood today? What is the most important thing I must remember about today's lesson? What did I not learn properly today? That is the type of feedback that would take the student to become more autonomous in the future. That is a necessary task in remote learning. You cannot expect that within the lessons that you teach remotely, students would be acquiring language properly. It's not enough. You need to take students to this self-reflection and peer reflection opportunities, so that whenever they are on their own without you, they will be able to use the same the strategies, strategic competence again, the strategies to grow on their own. I hope I have met your expectations. I cannot stop apologizing for the situation that arose this afternoon with the technology, but I am glad your question. I am glad I was able to deliver the presentation, and I am glad to be able to answer some of your very interesting questions this afternoon.
Thank you, Augusto. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was quite interesting. And we really appreciate your time. We really appreciate as that's things that happen sometimes with technical matters that we have, no? But thank you very much. On behalf of Olmara, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Now, this is the link I just posted for the rest of the audience. The link of evaluation for the first presentation given by Mr. Lescano. So please click there. And well, you have to just follow the instructions there. Thank you, Augusto, once again. So
Thank
now
you
we're
very
going to
much.
continue. Thank you very much. And nice to see you again.
Same here. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye, Augusto. Thank you very much. Now we're going to continue with the next presentation. So the next presenter is a well-known speaker, right? Because he was with us last week. So let me introduce Mr. Julio Abanto. Julio has a master in education, holds a University of Michigan and University of Cambridge certification in English, a training certificate by the Swan School in English, Oxford, language certificate, Oxford International UK. The CELT University of Cambridge, trained a trainer Cambridge certificate, postgraduate courses in applied linguistics, and TESOL, University of Leicester, UK. Diploma in Educational Management by Pontificia Universidad Católica del Perú. Diploma in ELT, Universidad de Piura. Diploma in Leadership and Management by Universidad Internacional de La Rioja, Mexico. Presented many teacher training workshops and seminars in different countries. Certified presenter and speaking examiner for Cambridge exams. He currently teaches IGCSE courses and is the academic director in a registered Cambridge International School. The topic that he is delivering today is called Promoting Leadership. Promoting leadership and decision-making skills among teachers can help you develop a strong and motivated workforce. Employees who are encouraged to develop their professional skills and step up their role in your language school have the potential to help your institution grow and prosper, promoting a greater role for staffers who also serve as a strong motivator, improving productivity and decreasing turnover. Well, Julio, the audience is all yours.
Hello, everyone. I don't know if you can listen to me properly. Yes.
We can, yes.
Yes. Thank you very much, Jesus. I want to give my first words to honor Augusto Lescano. We used to work a lot giving talks when we were in TESOL. I remember him giving wonderful presentations in different TESOLs in Peru, in Cajamarca, Lima, Arequipa. And I believe his wisdom and expertise help us a lot understanding the standards, right? So thank you, Augusto, for this. It's an honor for me to be here with you today. Right, so now I'm going to share with you something that is, I do believe is important to understand what is leadership and good. My question is that promoting leadership, but I didn't want to guide or to send this item to teachers, coordinators, principals, or students, right? Because we're going to be this in a holistic way, so from the whole perspective of leadership. And I'm going to make a simile between the idea of teaching and the idea of being a leader, right? Not teachers as a leader, not students as leaders, right? It's just in a general way, but we're going to start analyzing certain factors, and then we're going to match with the leadership so you may understand the whole idea in the best way possible, right? So So we said promoting leadership, right? But before this, we need to understand what are the key factors in a language. We have factors in a language a lot. And technically, when we say, for example, that we have some factors, that is what we call the idea of what makes it alive. So my question is, what are the key factors in a language? So what drives you to learn a language? So what are the prerequisites to have in order to learn this, any kind of language like English, Spanish, Russian, whatever you consider? So I would like to start reading your answers, right? So what are the key factors, and what moves you to learn a language, right? Especially in a person, is there a psychological side, physiological item? So what is it, right? So what is it? And let me see. All right. So yes, I having this in the answer is like yeah, participation, good. Yes, yes. Needs. Somebody says here needs, no? So it's a factor in learning language to need. So you, for example, need to know English because your head asks you to be promoted. You need to have a second language, right? Yeah, good. So technically, when we start emphasizing about a language, we may see that. Well, I'm going to show you a cartoon so you can understand, right? And see, we can start communicating so far. So let's see, he says, peanuts, right? I believe you like peanuts so much as I do. He says, Charlie Brown's talking to Linus, says, so you really like your teacher, Linus? So it's a question, right? So you like your teacher, Linus? Yes. And Linus says, yes, she's a good teacher, Charlie Brown. No, I'm sorry. She's more than just a good teacher. She's a great human being. Nice of Linus to say that to a teacher, you know. She's a good teacher, Charlie Brown. No. It's more just a good teacher. It's a great human being. So that is beyond the teaching skills. It's like human skills, right? But he says, no. I'm sorry, I was mistaken. He says, she's more than a good teacher and a great human being. So what can be beyond a good teacher, great human being? So what is above all of this? If we understand a good teacher is like, okay, you have teaching skills, so you reach students' understanding, and great human beings, so you value them, you treat them not well, so they feel their care. So what is beyond? What is above all of this information? So let's continue, right? So it says, Linus says, oh, Miss Othman is a good teacher, a great human being, and a living doll. Yes, a living doll, right? So you understand this is that Linus says put above all of this is the appearance, right? So it's a living doll, right? So it's a living, so you can see Charlie Brown's face. So we may say that the key factor is like, imagine this teacher is like what? Yes, you're right. It says motivation. So that is true that motivation is one of the key factors, like it says. But I see all here, the participants, our friends, and we have like 95% are women. So I believe I'm not being fair with you. So this is for you. Yes. Or we call motivation here, right? So the key factors in a language, what is motivation. And that is true because sometimes in lessons or in conference, you put for example, Brad Pitt is delivering a conference about how to new techniques on how to clean the board properly. And if you don't care about the topic, you just care about that Brad Pitt is coming. So you go there, you make your, I don't know, you have to to wait even some day before because you like and you love this guy. So you are motivated to be there. It's the same if it were Angelina Jolie, the new presenter. I would cover all the front seats to be there, right? So I'm eager to be there for motivation, right? You mentioned that this is banal, it's like a cosmopolitan idea, like a Vanity Fair, no spectacular sensation. But unfortunately, it's true. You can be motivated. Because motivated is something that drives you to do things. And also that person is like this. I remember when I was a student in English, like, so yeah, I believe like, I don't remember exactly the time, but I remember the chit chats in the corridor, this teacher says, who's going to be the teacher next Friday? So we're going to teach that cycle. No, I'm going to race it with that teacher because no, I don't like him. Oh no, so look at this. This teacher is coming to teach the intermediate. So I'm going to raise in her classroom. Okay, yes. Because we consider the teacher also drive us to be one of the learners there. And it happens until now, right? Because some students in some language schools says, who's going to teach the next cycle? Okay. And they believe they have a sensation of relief knowing that a teacher is good, or, right? And also they complain that no, I don't want that teacher because I have a negative experience with that or before. So in some time, motivation is one of the key factors when we learn a language, and we know this so far. And the next, it's exposure. So what about exposure? Continue with these peanuts, right? Exposure, right? Let's continue with the peanuts, right? So here we have Charlie Brown and Lucy. They are playing baseball, right? And Lucy says, I got it. And Charlie answers, says, catch it, Lucy, catch it, and you'll be the hero. No, it's like, I got it, catch it, Lucy, you'll be the hero. No, you'll be the one. You will ace today. But Lucy stops hearing. And she says, what? Hearing. Again, what? And look at the ball. Yes, instead of the ball right now is bonk. Here is hearing. Here is feminine. So look at Charlie's eyes, no, instead of the ball. Right, listen, Charlie Brown. Hearing. Here is feminine. Charlie and Lucy goes on and say, here is a male and here is a female. Remember, right? Yes, please listen. Here is a male and here is a female. So when I catch the ball, I'll be the hearing. So please do not disturb, right? I'll be the hearing. And look at Charlie's eyes right now. Saying, you don't know anything, do you, Charlie Brown? It says, oh my God. So we're trying to say here with this that exposure is to be in contact with, right? And we can like cut this contact when we start interacting in students' production. And some teachers, they love correcting all the time. So if you start correcting your students, when the students produce, you're in contact with them, so they cannot have the right input. So when you focus on just think before speaking, and this is not valid, you promote fluency. So the students would not be in contact with the language. They will be afraid of saying something that is wrong. So, and that is why some students do not participate when you're asked for volunteers, because they don't want to mistake, because you don't want to be the puppet of the day that say, no, you don't say that way, so we have to say like that. Or when some teachers ask students to read, to read aloud some paragraphs, and then in the middle of the reading, so the teacher, no, we say that way, okay, continue. So it's terrifying to feel that sensation, right? So which is quite broad goods, all right. So then the number 3 we may say is the use of the language, right? The use. But look at this. So here we have a math lesson, right? This is the mathematics teacher. The teacher says, all right, BC, so knowing that BC is the student, right, BC? All right, BC, write the numbers up to 100 in tens. So listen to the instruction, right? write the numbers up to 100 in tens. And this is okay, yes. So you're wondering yourself right now, I believe these are clear instructions, right? Just because you just write the numbers up to 100 in tens. So now let's think about it. Do you believe BC understood? So that belief got crystal clear this. So let's see what happens. And that's the way he started writing, says like, you know. And the teacher notices this, wait, what are you doing here, right? Please stop what you're doing. You're messing around this. That's not the correct way. Hold it. And you see busy eyes. He says, oh my God, what are they doing? This is what you said to me. So now here we have an explanation. It says, you can't mix words and numbers like that. You have to be consistent. So focus on these words. It says, you can't mix words and numbers like that. You have to be consistent. And what is to be consistent? Because the teacher says, now, erase the whole thing and do it over, right? So what is to be consistent? Because I do not understand, according to the teacher's perspectives, what he wants. So it's just consistent. Oh my God, consistent. Okay, so it's to do the same, to follow a format, to start the same way, or finish the same way. So what is to have a prompt? So what is to be consistent? So, but that's the teacher's advice, right? More than advice, is a warning. So erase the whole thing and do it over. And now let's see if BC understood. Like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, this, but including the figure and the number. But it's interesting because we analyze BC. BC is right. He is right. He's being consistent, right? And that's to be consistent because I follow my teacher, what my teacher said, and I've been consistent because I add the letter and the figure. So, and that is to be consistent. It's got a format. I start at the beginning the same, and I try to finish the same way. So I demand. So this is consistent. But the teacher says, oh my God. So once again, we have this problem. So we have to face the issue that use. So the use is connected, not what the students are going to do in class. The use is connected what the teachers want the students to do. And this is related to instructions. So instructions are vital in class. So you don't deliver instructions the right way, students may understand something that is wrong. And in the middle of the activity, you say, hey, that's not what I asked, please. So you have to do it again. So now the student says, oh, but I thought you said. So the instruction is more than clear examples, so, and to start and to go ahead when the students, they knew what to do exactly to have a model. But technically, there is an amount large of teachers who deliver instructions wrongly, and they correct at the moment of delivering the answer, the feedback, right? Or they start listening to these kind of words. So let's say, teacher, I don't understand. What can I say? ¿Qué se hace? Right, I'm sorry. That is complicated, right? So the use of language is not also connected that you have to use. So tell me how I will use this, right? So the next one, that is analysis. So we have 4 lines: motivation, exposure, use, and analysis. Use analysis. It's an utterly thinking, right? So let's see again. It says, they caught you using bad grammar the other day. So now the human, the lady is complaining, right? And God is trying to understand, because the Bible, when it was appeared, was full of mistakes, or maybe that it was an Asian language, right? But let's see what God answers. And God answered, with all my problems, you want me to worry about grammar. You say that. I have a lot of things to do, and you ask me to step up and say, I need to say that grammatically correct. So Peter, time Peter, get her name. She's coming to Agnes' name. Oh no. So once again, the analysis tends to be with a teaching of structures and grammar. But to analyze doesn't mean to memorize or to give just the grammar items you need to memorize when we use it and the structure. I agree with Augusto when he mentioned about the use of functions. And function is different because we can teach grammar and the communicative idea of using functions. So you can teach past tense under the headline of saying, talking about past habits or talking about past events. So students know what they are using in the language. But you write as a title past tense and use and the structure, so the student will focus on, okay, that is grammar, but I'm not going to be asked the structure of this because I'm going to be asked all the type of questions like complete the gaps in a conversation or match the halves of this. So once again, the analysis of the grammar is not the problem, it's the way you do it, right? So, and this is one of the things, the factors in language, right? And going back to this, if you do this, that's not enough because psychologically speaking, we say that 90% what is learned in the classroom is forgotten within 30 days and 60 within an hour. So that is absolutely true because when we finish this chain of workshops or webinars, you may remember just less than 10%. You will say, I remember that he talked about something about leadership, something like that. Yes, he mentioned a little about grammar, yes. But you won't remember everything that you consider because we have the wrong idea that students will remember what we want. And that is wrong. A student will remember what they want to remember, not what you want. So you can do whatever it's on your hands, and so and to be creative, meaningful lessons. But the students will have the decision to absorb that information or not. And now during the lockdown, the major impact of this is so far because we are not close to the student to see even what he's doing. So the student will acquire, simulate, and even we are not calling this learning, and we just acquire things or learn, okay, if you want, but not the idea is that you consider you want him to learn because it's up to him, up to them, what things he's going to remember. Right, what he considers valid. So all the information is put on a bowl, and it's like a salad of information, and you just pick up what you consider you like. And so tasting this, so following this example, you won't eat what you like. Sorry, or you don't eat what you dislike, what you hate, right? So we offer you choose something that you hate, fine. So that is learning, yes, an acquisition, if we can say, acquisition is natural, and learning is something formal. And the natural way of learning things is just by listening to be exposed. And the regular and the formal way, what we call learn, is giving them rules, analyze, work. So this is a mixture. So this connection happens, but 90% is forgotten 30 days, 60% an hour. And not only the students need to understand or to learn English, they have other subjects, like they are competing, like mathematics, science, even social studies, or I do not know, even we are competing against his or their lives, or their preferences. And this is interesting to analyze, right? So, and you may say right now, and leadership, you may be asking right now, this is the title of the presentation was leadership. We're talking about factors in any language. Dear friends, beloved people, we are gathered together to understand these are connected. Remember, motivation, exposure, use, and analysis. We're talking about also about leadership characteristics in some way. That is motivation. Imagine students are motivated with that figure. Will you just laugh at this? But will you say that it's obvious to me why the teachers, yeah, they just come on, they reach their limits of understanding, their limits of patience, and they want to sometimes burst into tears and say, "Oh my God, what I'm doing here is 2 + 2 is 4. What on earth do you believe what you're doing, right?" Of course, it doesn't happen, but sometimes we think that way, right? And we believe we are leading students. We are not. We have the authority, but we don't have, yes, the own leadership. Because somebody gave us the authority to be the teacher, but the students didn't give us the authority, right? So, and that is the opposite. The students, they won't follow you because you said so. The students won't follow you. You are right to be followed. You are deserved to do it. And not only teachers deserve to be followed because students know they're not real, they just pretend to be. Or they have these kind of reactions they don't understand. So technically, what we call is inspiration. So motivation is connected with inspiration. So we need to inspire people. How do we inspire people? Number one, showing respect. And this is what number one in life. Not only at home or in class, is on the street. We have to show respect. And people will follow us because we inspire to do things. The main inspiration in life is to give something so people can say, "Oh yes, I learned something from you. Yes, you deserve my respect." And I show my respect. Not because the principal said you are the teacher, no, because you earn my respect. And we inspire people. And yes, recently I was reading this kind of Facebook quotes. A friend of mine was complaining that some people do not respect his professional side, and it happens. It happens a lot. So, in class, with parents, even with your colleagues, or sometimes the principals or coordinators, sometimes we don't see what is behind the cover. We only just judge the book by its cover, but we don't need to open it. But we have to. We have to. So what I'm trying to say that, and sometimes the rumor can kill people, and sometimes this rumor is based on something that is wrong, a bad impression, what is not. And that is wrong because mediocre people follow rumors, and the rumor ends up in an intelligent person. So when you want to inspire people, not all of one, they believe you're inspiring. They believe you're showing off. That is true. I do remember a person anecdote. I was working in a language school, 2000. I was working with kids because it was it is my passion to work with kids. And I started just taking posters. I have my weather poster, I have my time, my attendance. I used to work on Saturday because from 9 a.m. till 12:30, I don't remember exactly the times, but I decorate my class. So I arrive half an hour before, so they give me the decoration. I have to buy my own decoration. So I stick on the wall like this, like, "Welcome to the class. This is the reading side. This is a corner of I think your belongings." And so I try to follow this kind of, because I learned when I was a student of methodology that you have to create the environment. There is the English environment. So I try to do the same. The weather thing, I start asking what's the weather like today, and where I'm so, because I used to teach like 7 or 8 years old, and I love it. But I remember that the third Saturday in the teacher's room, then 3 ladies approached me and says, Julio, what you're doing is wrong. He says, why? Because you are forcing us to do the same. Please stop what you're doing because some parents are complaining. And I says, I'm not doing because I want to show off. I do this because I like it. And I think it's got a goal. And students need to feel the English environment. It's not just to pretend. Because it says, pretend that you are, pretend that you are. And I convince them that we will follow this kind of approach. The student will feel comfortable and they will open, they will transmit their needs, and they also will produce. Fortunately, I convinced some of them, but not all of them were happy. But they started saying that I was trying to show off. And it wasn't at that time. But you may encounter these type of people as well that try saying that you are better than him or better than them, but it's not true because you believe in your principles. It's because you are following the right track. And people will criticize you whatever you do, right? Because they don't want to do the same, because the comfort zone they live is enough. But inspiration is beyond, right? That's how we inspire people to do things. And this is true. And also that being teacher friendly, right? So leadership comes to be friendly. It doesn't mean to be a friend. So stop what you're thinking right now. So be a friend and friend is not the same. We cannot be friend of our students. And you cannot be a friend of everyone. So we have to be friendly, knowing that somebody dislikes us or we don't. So being friendly is one of the key elements, because we need to establish this kind of consensus part in leadership. It means that you have to be like flat enough to see the panorama, and you have to see not only the forest, you have to be also the tree. So being friendly means like that, and teacher friendly is that we need to be approachable. I do believe that right word is to be approachable, so they can reach right a person. And this is true because some teachers they leave the class with a bulldog face, and you don't want to ask a question. That is true. I remember when I was studying at university, my professor said, "Okay, I'm going to give you a lecture about this topic, so please, and at the end, I want you to ask me questions if you want, if it's not clear. But remember, only intelligent people do not ask questions." So we were in shock. What he's trying to say. Of course, yeah, that is true. It's just at the end of the talk. So we were just looking around. Says, who's the Superman to do it? Yes, to face this. Yes, and he said that at the end. He says, "Yes, please. You are ordinary. You do what everybody says. Everybody does. You have to ask questions, because if you keep your doubt, the doubt will be a big hole, and sometimes when the big hole may eat you, right? So do something extra, and that is the difference between being extra and ordinary. Do extra things, be extraordinary. And this is interesting because when we start talking with this teacher, because he taught me semantics, that is crazy. It's an old guy, but how the expertise and the wisdom is still intact. Yeah. Also, the way of being a leader is like how we deliver things, how we communicate things, right? And pretend that you are the teacher in a class and some students need to receive some bad news. You have to be able to give them the bad news in the right way. Also, when you have to talk to parents, you have to choose the right words to address them. And when you talk to the principal and so on, but you have to do it, and not, and the omission of things sometimes is not right. So we have to be communicative. Yes. So if you communicate, you have to be like crystal clear, as we said. And technically, not all the teachers know how to communicate. Right, that is true. Yeah, I've met wonderful teachers that in class they're spectacular. they do that what they want with the students. Students love them, but then they close the door. They step out of the class and they are shy. They just keep their heads down and they walk to the teacher's room. And they say nothing. They just and then they go back to the class. They transform and then just like this. And sometimes we need to talk to them because something's going on. Maybe they might be afraid of something. Being afraid is like something like, I don't want to talk to you because maybe you may say that I'm doing things wrong. And I remember that because I was one of them when I had that talk with my 3 friends at the language school when they complained I was trying to be a show showing my poster to the kids the other 3 days on the Saturdays. Yes, I ran away as soon as even I have to wait until everybody was out and then go home. It affected me a lot, but then I started to understand it was not me, it was them because what I doing was right. And this is what my head said to me, Julio, what you're doing is right. So they are wrong. But at the same time, I was young, and this is something that happens. Not so we have to keep track. And this is what we have to do to empower. We have to empower people. So coordinators who knows how to deal with teachers, they need to know they have to empower people. Not only teachers are right every day. Technically, we are November the 28th, but for some teachers, they want to just to give up right now. You say, I give you 1,000 soles and you finish your class today and then you go home. They will accept it because we are exhausted. We are exhausted. You are exhausted. Even the students are exhausted, right? Because it was a different year. It was an exhausting year and nobody believed what was going on. So you ask yourself or ask somebody in December of 2019, if we're going to be like this, nobody would project that. So we have to empower students and teachers that we have to keep doing like this, but we have to empower them being friendly, being approachable. So the idea of empowering is not trying to put in their shoes because that's wrong. It's to listen to them. And listening to people is one of the key of empowering things, right? And this is technically right. When you empower people, this is true. And what we have to do is to do things that which are relevant, right? Like monitoring, like going with. So be part of our friends, our teachers and students' progress. So to talk to them, to give them ideas. So the relevancy of the things is interesting because what you consider is important for you can be important for me. And some teachers, they say that in 2020 was a waste of time year, and I don't believe so because believe it or not, I had the opportunity to go on a study this year. I have to follow that because it was a need and also because I like it. And I gave my friends some of the things that I learned, and they love it because we started exchanging like kind of community of information. And this is interesting because we are in the mood of working, and also we ask ourselves what's going to be the next year. It's going to be the same. We do not know. We have to be prepared, mentally prepared as well, right? This is not the same Christmas or the same New Year's Day. We have to be prepared, and nobody knows what is coming, right? So we have to be flexible enough. So leadership means to be flexible, to be adaptable to the circumstances, right? So these kind of animals, they shape their colors according to the surface. So flexibility is like, you have to be flexible enough to understand this year was not the same. And also, if you're a coordinator, you need to understand your teacher that the amount of work, not a lot of work is being increased, in a huge way, technically talking. We have to prepare a lot of documents that sometimes we believe that the coordinators or principals do not read. But this is what we are being asked to do. We have to do it in a friendly way, with a big smile, not a joker smile, but in a friendly smile and being flexible. And the ones who are at the top need to understand and some teachers do not understand what to do. You have to help them, give advice. But flexibility is to use the brain, because the one of the things the brain is that the brain is flexible, but not all the people use it that way. So you may encounter different people in different moods, different ways. You can see the picture like a ballet dancer. We have this like a doctor and nurse. So every person is unique. Every person has his own conception of living, and every person feels differently. So the way you do, and leaders, you need to understand that these kind of differences, right? So we don't have to format all the people the same way. So if you provide counseling, this means that you need to understand every single human as his own. And this is what we consider leadership, right? Is to understand people, but to give value what they do, but knowing that they are different. And that is interesting, because this is what we call a pick and mix approach, right? It's to be flexible, to know when to, yes, to hold the time, to know when to talk, to know what to say, and also to show that you don't lie, you can complain, that is true. Not everything is empty-handed, right? So you have to be fair, but fair, right? And this to be coherent, remember, we and coherent, right? And of course, this is what it's a long way to go, right? And just we analyze these are the 5 traits of effective leaders. Believe that teachers matter. That is right. And teachers matter a lot. Students as well. Strive for success. You have to push hard, even though you have blocks on the road. You cannot go through, you can just go around, but you have to go. You have to listen to the students and teachers' voices. Remember? Yes, relevant voices. That's what we call. See, errors are opportunities to improve. Yes, this lockdown gave us the opportunity to improve our IT skills. Now you got more idea how to use the computer, more gaps, right? So to improve, to become better, and use feedback to improve teaching. But not only feedback, I believe feed forward is the other word connected, right? Because feedback sees the past, forward look at the future, right? Keep in mind that. And this is the idea of being approachable, right? So get in contact with people, right? Socialize. Let us know what you are doing, what they need, what they want, right? I believe some people live in a box, and this box sometimes treats them like a jail. And leadership is like, I may help you the time I can. Because also you're not a superman or a superwoman, you cannot help everyone, right? Also the people you are near, and maybe the people, not all the people want to be helped as well, right? And this is something that is true. So technically, you may say this is true, right? Leadership is also not all the teachers who have a lot of experience are leaders, right? So Penny Orr says that teachers with 20 years experience and those with one experience repeated 20 times. Not because you have 20 years of experience means that you have everything that you want as well. No, because maybe the experience was the same. You repeat the same year, the same. So that's what repeated 20 times. So leadership is to reshape yourself and to see that panorama clearly. Of course, this is not issue. This is not an easy issue to do it, but we have to do it, right? Also, leaders make mistakes. A leader can mistake, but it's also a proof of being a leader to stand up and to go on, to correct the mistakes, right? So if you're there to teach, you must dare to learn. And if you stop learning, that is what leaders don't do, because leaders are also in contact with truth, with some items, new approaches, new things, because you can help them, right? With the idea of helping, of sharing. And it's technically true and it's important. And the apple is for teachers. but this wisdom, this image is like sharing, right? Yes, that is true. And you don't know because when I was a student, I got the opportunity to learn. So the word apple polish is sobon, no, like it's like, and the apple polish, and I asked the teachers also what is apple polish, and he gave us the story. It's like in Queenstown in England, you got they have these poor places, and the was the king. The king decided to set a school, but not in one city, in one town, because everybody wants to have a school in town. So he decided to place a school in the middle, so every single town can send their kids at the same time, not the same moment. So it's not one school for one town. So it's just schools that three towns can send their kids. So, but the king said we have no money to pay the teacher, right? So the citizens so need to contribute with the teacher's salary. If they have no money, they can send what they produce on their farms. So it not tell the story that there was a school that the farms only produce apples, right? So all the students, they arrive with two or just one apple, and give it to no to the teacher, but they noticed the apple were kind of dirty, and they used the apple, and before, yes, they know it was dirty. So instead of delivering the apple at that moment, they show the apple and they start polish against their clothes like this and deliver it. They polish, teacher, for you. So everyone noticed and they start following what they say. Teacher, they noticed the apple and they start polishing. It says, for you, for you, for you. And by that time, it was coined the word apple polisher. When it was interested to analyze that, because how language is. Yeah, if you dare to teach, you must dare to learn. So I want to thank Olmarans for this kind invitation of free continuous Saturdays. And I hope you like these presentations. I try to be to go straight to the point, what we're doing right now. And I believe all the presentations with Katia, yes, with Augusto, right, and with Olga, they have been a lot of interesting issues, no, to be delivered right now in this kind of lockdown situation. So thank you for listening, and I hope to be one of these inspiring things for you to activate the leader you have inside, right? Take it out, and you will have wonderful, wonderful results in your life. Thank you. Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you, Julio, for your marvelous presentation. I'm sorry, for the people who wanted to ask questions, there was a problem with the link. I just posted it in the chat so that if you want to ask any question, you can access there right now and pose your question, okay? So that Julio can answer them. I don't know if so far we have any question. Let's see. All right.
We have people from Dominican Republic. Yes, thank you for attending, right?
I think we have people from many places as Nicaragua as well. Right.
Ah.
Nicaragua, right? Rosana says Peru Tech invited them. Greetings to Peru Tech as well. And to Rosana. Hi, Rosana. Nice to see you. All right. Well, I see that there are no questions so far.
Once again, I want to express my gratitude to all you for coming and to give us your time for this sharing once again. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you, Julio. So as we don't have any other question, I think everything was pretty much clear. So now, just to complete this session, I'm going just to send the evaluation link, right? Some people were asking about the attendance. Remember that in the evaluation link, by participating, you register your attendance. So I'm going to just post it here. All right. This is the link for the evaluation, right? Oh, Rosana, Carolina says that she asked a question. I don't know if it's there. Well, it's not here. Carolina, I'm sorry. Maybe as we have so many messages, I don't know if you can write your question in the chat so that Julio can see it and maybe he can answer it. Rosana as well. Well, actually, I gave you a link for the questions. And I don't see any questions so far. Maybe you can post it on the chat. Oh, sorry, it was Rosana. Rosana, yes. Julio, this is a question for you. Are you still there?
Yes.
The question is, what are the most important characteristics for a leader? From Rosana Ceballos.
Well, I do believe that leaders, they don't have characteristics. I think they have ways or models of living. So we can give them characteristics, but a leader should be a model of living. But I'm not sanctifying this. But so what you say you have to do it, and this is a fair idea because some people say something that they do the opposite. So what you promote, you have to confirm. And the other characteristic is to be fair and horizontal, because the leader is not being created by an authority. So you cannot receive the title of being a leader of somebody because somebody said, right? So this empathy shows that people give you the gratitude, not telling you you are the leader. So nobody will approach you and says, I am the leader. No, so they will nominate you as a leader, showing you respect, right?
Yeah, I fully agree with you, Julio. Some people say that when you need to say your position, maybe it's because you believe that you don't deserve it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or the longer the title, the least important the responsibility. That's what some people say, right? Okay. Cecilia says a leader needs to have empathy. Yeah, that's right. Okay, thank you very much, Julio, for your presentation. It was a marvelous presentation. And for the rest of you, remember that you have, I'm going to post the link of evaluation again. That's the way in which you're going to allocate your attendance, right? There it is. There it is. And well, this is the end of a 3-week seminar for you with these professional development courses or was presentations, academic presentations organized by Olmara Education. So here you have the information if you want to contact Olmara, right? The telephone numbers, the WhatsApp numbers nowadays that we have social networks that they're actually faster than phone calls. We have the email. You can follow them on the page, right? At the fan page on Facebook, the Olmara Education, as well as Twitter, and so on. All right. Thank you very much for your attendance. We really appreciate being on a Saturday afternoon here, just trying to learn something extra because every time that we have a speaker in front of us, there is something extra to learn. There is always something